In this video, we're going to talk about the best WordPress shared hosting, and we're going to talk about the different criteria that makes a shared hosting company a good shared hosting company. So we're going to go through all of that in this video. Hi, my name is Adam from WPCrafter.com, where I make WordPress tutorial videos for non-techies. If you're new here, consider clicking on the subscribe button. And if you don't want to miss a thing, click on that notification bell. So we're going to go through this presentation style today, and I've got this all ready to go. So first of all, I want to talk about what to expect in this video. And my main goals for you is to know if shared hosting is actually right for you. So sometimes we have expectations when it comes to hosting for our websites, and we might be buying the wrong type of hosting. There's 8 different types of web hosting. I made a video on that, and I'll link that in the video description box down below. And the next goal that I have for you is to know how to choose the right WordPress shared hosting company. And so those are my goals for you. So let's first of all talk about what shared hosting is anyway. Essentially, you would be getting your website hosted on a single server with potentially thousands of other websites. So the hosting company sells you an account and you're placed on a particular server. And web hosting companies, they have sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of servers that they maintain and they set up, but they're going to put you on a server with someone else. I don't know if you've ever lived in an apartment in maybe a large apartment complex where you're in there and you're living there around other people. You have to sometimes listen to their music. You sometimes have to smell the smell of their cooking. You sometimes have to hear their children running down the hallway. But that's kind of what shared hosting is. You're sharing everything. You're sharing the resources on the server, and sometimes there might be some bad neighbors, like in the apartment example, and that happens sometimes with shared hosting as well. Someone on the server might be using more resources and causing problems for the entire server, or maybe someone's sending out a lot of spam from their account and it causes a problem with the IP address on the server. This is shared hosting. Now, shared hosting isn't all that bad. I know I'm making it out to seem a little worse than it is, but that is the true reality of it. Now, obviously, if you choose the right shared hosting company, they have measures in place to make sure that everybody is behaving, that your websites are sharing that server resources with. And also, shared hosting is really the beginner hosting where you start out with your website. You don't have too much traffic. This is just kind of where you start out with typically, and then you move up into something else. As the website traffic grows, as the demands of your website start to increase. Okay, so the shared hosting companies, they typically use what's the industry standard control panel, and it's called cPanel. And so this is a separate company that makes it. All the shared hosting companies, they pretty much pay a license to have this thing called cPanel, and that's what you're going to use when you log into your hosting account to manage it, create an email address, to add a new WordPress website to your hosting account, and all those little management type of duties. You're going to be doing this in cPanel. Now, all the cPanels might look a little different, but it's pretty much the same thing, and that's because cPanel allows these hosts to customize it. So if one hosting company's colors are predominantly red, they can make the cPanel experience look like that, but it's all pretty much cPanel with all the shared hosting companies. Now, what's great about that for you is if you want to move from one shared hosting company to another shared hosting company, you just need to get a backup of this cPanel account, and your new hosting company can restore that cPanel account, and you're going to take your emails with you, your website files with you. Everything's going to be moved with you when you make that transition. And it also makes it easy because when you're in that, you made that transition, you don't have to learn some new control panel because it's the industry standard cPanel control panel experience, even though it might look slightly different. Now, one of the things you have to watch out with shared hosting is these pricing discounts that they offer. So I'll show you a couple shared hosting companies that I like later in this video, but these pricing discounts are a little deceptive. So it's an industry standard practice when you go to sign up for a new shared hosting account that there's going to be the normal monthly price of the account, but you can get a discount. One of the companies I'm going to show you gives you a 70% discount. You might be thinking, wow, that's great. I like to save 70%. But what happens is when you want that discount, you either pay by the month, it's a less of a discount, or you prepay for a year, it's a little bit more of a discount, or you prepay for up to 3 years and you get this huge discount. But what happens is at the end of that term, when you get that rebill, you could be in for a huge shock if your hosting company, you initially bought it with this massive discount. So you need to make sure you're aware of the normal price, because that's what you're going to have to pay at the end of the initial period that you purchased the hosting for. So just be aware of these pricing discounts. Okay, so next we have the 4 S's of hosting. This is something that I came up with. This is kind of my criteria for determining if a host is good or bad or having the right expectations. The 4 S's of hosting. The first S is speed. So typically with shared hosting, you're gonna need to add a caching solution to your WordPress website. This is usually in the form of a plugin, which makes your website load and the load speed more stable and consistent, and it will make it load faster. Now, your shared hosting companies, you're gonna need this. There's another type of hosting called managed WordPress hosting. They usually have this caching on the server directly, so you don't have to install anything to make that happen. And one of the hosts I'm going to share with you later in this video, they kind of do that as well for you. But speed, you're going to be okay, but if you have a very demanding site like an e-commerce site or maybe even an online course website, and you really start getting traffic, you really start getting people onto your website, you're going to need to maybe consider not using shared hosting, or at that point, once you've started to build up traffic and the caching and all that isn't providing the experience you want, then you might want to bump up to managed WordPress hosting. Okay, security. Now what security is 2 things. Number 1, do they have free SSL certificates? This was more important about a year or 2 ago. Now most web hosting companies are offering that, but there are still a ton of shared hosting companies that do not offer a free SSL certificate, which is something you absolutely need to have on your website. Security goes beyond that in 2 different areas. Does the web hosting company clean your website if there's any malware, or if it gets, maybe you have a plugin, you're not keeping things updated, and then it kind of gets infected with a virus or malware? Does your web hosting company provide cleaning for that? Now, the good news is 2 of the 3 companies I'm going to share with you later do have some automated way to keep it clean. But that's something that you're going to want to know about. And the last one is, do they have, is the shared hosting company big enough that they've invested in the equipment to protect their network of servers from a denial of service attack? So this is one of the advices I'm going to give you later, is don't go with the small mom and pop company, because sometimes they don't have that investment into the protection to proactively keep your website safe so it does not go down. Okay, support. And when I'm specifically talking about, all your shared hosting companies are going to give you support. That's a no-brainer. But are they going to give you WordPress specific support? And that is not so common. So you're going to want to know if your shared hosting company offers that. The 3 companies I'm going to talk about later do offer WordPress specific support. Okay, and then what I like to call specialty. Is there any specific features that they have to that hosting company that makes having a WordPress website easier? This would be a staging setup where you can go in there, click one button, it creates a staging area, you can test changes and things like that. These WordPress specific features. Most shared hosting companies are going to have no WordPress specific features like that. However, the 3 I'm going to share with you later do have some, and I'm going to clarify what those are. And these are usually the 4 things that guide me on choosing one host over another host. So let me give you some practical best advice right now. So number one, I want to give you a warning about reviews. These are written reviews or video reviews or any type of reviews, okay? So first of all, there's a problem with the bad reviews. Okay, so if you have a web hosting company, well, let me just establish the fact that every single web hosting company, no matter how genuinely amazing and good they are going to have bad reviews someplace on the internet. Someone is going to be, if they're big enough, someone's going to have not had the best experience with those services. And they're usually the ones that are the most vocal. They're going to shout from the rooftops about how maybe a support rep was a little rude with them, or they didn't get the extent of the help that they were expecting from that company, or maybe some other expectation that they had that was not met. This is common. Every single host is going to have a bad review like that. And that's just the way that it is, because no matter how perfect a company can be and spot on, there's always going to be that moment where someone had a bad day, and maybe someone at the hosting company had a bad day, and just something just didn't work out. So you got to kind of, when you're reading a bad review, kind of put that, take that into account. Now, there's also a problem, and this is probably the bigger problem, and it's the problem with good reviews. And so what this is with shared hosting specifically, there's a lot of referral fees. Every shared hosting company offers referral fees. And that's not a bad thing. It's just some companies offer a much higher referral fee than other companies, and this is why you might see certain web hosting companies getting recommended or suggested more than others. And I'm going to get to some of the companies you might want to avoid, and those actually tend to be the companies that offer the highest referral fees, which might influence someone's decision to strongly recommend a certain company. So if you've seen a review video or you've written a review, you're pretty much guaranteed that the link is going to be a referral link. And that's not a bad thing. You just have to listen to someone that you actually genuinely trust. In fact, when you go to my website, WPCrafter.com, click on the hosting tab, and you're going to see all the hosts that I recommend, and I maintain that. You can see the uptime of the various hosts. It's a very transparent process. But if you click on any of those links, those are going to be referral links as well. The only thing I do a little differently is to make it a win for both of us, I include some training courses when you order hosting, so you're getting something of value beyond just the hosting. It's something that I like to do. But there's this problem with good reviews. So my best advice when it comes to asking around for a recommendation for a hosting company is go listen to real people that you trust. Now, for me, I go to Facebook groups. I'm active in a lot of Facebook groups, and you can pretty much tell some of the hosts that have been giving better experiences. Now, like I said, even the very best hosts that people genuinely are having a great experience, you're going to find people that have had a bad experience. But these are real people that have had real experiences. And so I factor that in with all the web hosting companies that I look at. Are people genuinely having a great experience with these hosting companies? Okay, and so here's some of the hosting companies you might want to avoid. There's a hosting company conglomerate called EIG. Now, EIG stands for Endurance International Group. They own HostGator, they own Bluehost, they own probably about 50 different hosting companies. iPage, there's a whole list of them. And as a matter of fact, in the video description box, I'll have a link to my website, and I'll try to have a current list of EIG-owned companies. Now, unfortunately, what ends up happening with the EIG companies is they'll acquire a hosting company, they'll get rid of their support staff and their accounting, and they'll merge it into the company. And the experience that people were used to tends to tank. Now, I do want to cut them a little bit of slack. I think that they have been maybe trying some of their companies have been trying to get a little better, but overall, their companies, people have had really bad experiences with them. And so this isn't just me. If you were to go and ask in maybe a Facebook group or a place where people are that you trust, there's going to be a lot of people saying the same exact thing. Okay, and you typically might want to avoid GoDaddy hosting as well. They're great for registering domain names. I actually don't register domain names there, but a lot of people do. I prefer Namecheap, but their hosting has really been bad, and they have a really long-term history of giving people really bad web hosting experiences. So you might want to avoid GoDaddy if you're considering GoDaddy. And one of the things I like to do is kind of avoid the small hosts. You know, when I'm going out to eat at a restaurant, I like to eat at not the big chains, just the single place. And I know that I'm helping them by spending my money with them, and they're getting a great meal and a great experience, and avoid the big chains. But when it comes to web hosting, you might not want to do that, because it all boils down to, is your web hosting company going to have the financial resources and the longevity to have great staff to support you and invest in the infrastructure and all of that. So you might want to avoid the small hosts. I personally prefer to avoid the small hosts and avoid them super huge ones like HostGator, and just kind of get in that middle sweet spot. And also, this might be a little on the controversial one, is I would recommend that you don't trust the web hosting companies, or don't blindly trust. How about that? Don't blindly trust the web hosting companies recommended on the WordPress page itself. I don't want to go into any of the specifics on that, but they're not there based upon the community of people saying they've had a great experience. They're there for a totally different reason. So just bear that in mind when you're on WordPress.org's website and you're looking at the hosting companies that they recommend. I would not recommend just blindly trusting that. Go back to the talking to real people or someone that you actually know and can trust. So here I want to go and talk about my top 3 picks for web hosting companies. So here on my website, there's a option right here that says hosting. And when you click on that, I have a listing of all the hosting companies that I'm currently recommending. And I will add to this. And if one of these companies really starts doing really bad, I will update it to reflect that. And I also have listings for other types of hosting, which I'll have videos linked to in the video description box down below. So I'm going to go through the 3 right now. So the first one would be InMotion Hosting. Very affordable hosting. They do give a discount to WPCrafter subscribers. So when you click on the link, a special discount's applied, and you might end up on this page with me. It's a really bad old picture of me, but that's okay. So they have these 3 plans here, and you can see the original price. So for one website, it's $8 normally, but with the discount, you can get it for $3.99, and then you would click here and choose the term that you want it for. So here's what I was talking about of the whole prepaying thing. So if you wanted it for just 1 year, the discount is less than if you purchased it for 2 years. But you can see right here that the normal price, $9.99 and $15.99. This plan right here is going to give you additional resources. Now, InMotion Hosting also offers WordPress specific hosting that costs a little bit more. It's if you can afford a little bit more, it's always best to go with the WordPress specific hosting. It's a different web hosting environment that's optimized for WordPress. But these are very affordable plans. One of the things I really like about InMotion is, number one, for WPCrafter subscribers, they give a special white glove transfer treatment. What that means is if you're moving to them from a different web host, there's a special form that you can fill out, and you get bumped to the head of the list of having someone there transfer your website for you. The normal wait time is like 10 days, but when they do it through this form, it's only about a day or 2. So you're going to have a totally different white glove type of experience. Another thing I like about InMotion Hosting is all their support is US based. They have live chat available for you, and you could just pick up the phone and give them a call if you need support that way. So there's all these ways of getting support. Also, what's important to note is they do have an automated system in there. So if, say, your website got hacked into because a plugin wasn't updated, they have a system that will identify that some maybe file's been modified, and it will extract that for you so that there's a level. It's not the best level, but it's a level of protection for your website. So InMotion Hosting, a good all-rounder. The next one would be A2 Hosting, and they have several packages right here. And then here on the far right, they have their managed hosting as well, WordPress specific hosting environment. So it's the same thing. You can see the discount and you can see the normal price. So on their lowest plan, it's just normally $7.99, and their highest plan is $18.99. Gives you more resources. Now, what I like about them is they have some great WordPress specific features. They have staging. They actually just recently added staging. I love that about it. And on this higher plan right here, they give you more resources, but then they also give you, they'll automatically install their caching solution so that your website will load faster and be smoother. InMotion Hosting doesn't do that, but you can add your own caching solution if you wanted. Honestly, I would probably use my own caching solution myself. So here is InMotion Hosting. Now I want to talk about SiteGround for a moment. SiteGround is one of the top recommended hosts. So if you go in a Facebook group and type, even mine, what is the best web host? Guaranteed SiteGround is going to be voted the best web host by most people. And you know what? They totally deserve it. But guess what? WordPress SiteGround hosting is not really your typical shared hosting. It's really more like managed WordPress hosting. So let me show you what that means. So, and they're also the one that does those really big discounts. So when it comes time to renew, you're going to be in for a shock when you see that sticker price. So anyways, so with SiteGround right here, you can see their lowest plan is $3.95, but then when it renews and you're up, it's now $12, $11.95. Where the other two companies I showed you were $7.99. Now there's also more limits. So with SiteGround, you're limited on the suggested, or they say suitable amount of website visitors, the amount of traffic to your website. So on the lowest plan, it's 10,000 visitors. You can have one website. The middle plan, which is probably one of their more popular plans, is 25,000 visitors. So all the websites that you have hosted, it's really only suitable for a total amount of 25,000 visitors on your website for the month. And then the highest plan right here is more suitable. It's probably the better plan, 100,000 visits per month. You're also limited in the amount of disk space, where the other ones you weren't limited, but there is kind of a limit that they don't talk about. There's no real thing as unlimited. But look at these renewal prices. The middle plan renews here at $20 per month, and the highest plan, even though you're only paying $12 a month when you sign up, depending on the term, you would be renewing at $35 per month, which is a lot of money. But here's the thing, you pay more and you actually get more. So you're gonna, they kind of installed the caching for you automatically on the server. So there's this server level caching. So without you having to do a whole lot, your websites are gonna work probably a little smoother, and you're not gonna have to go through the hassle of installing caching on your own. That's number one. Number two, they are just widely regarded as having the best, most friendly support staff. Now, sometimes I've heard that they can be quite short and rude with you, but I think that's like such a fringe, rare case. Most of the time, you're going to get probably the best support for WordPress from SiteGround, and that support, live chat and ticket-based support, and also phone-based support. And lastly, I think SiteGround does the best in regards to setting up WordPress, investing in WordPress specific features. So they have like one-click staging, so you can, before you do updates, you can create a test environment and then test your updates. So they've actually put the money into that. They also have the caching that I talked about, and they recently, about a month ago, added this other new feature where you can easily migrate your site from your old host to them. When you log in, it's like a real super easy and kind of almost automated process. Just your website, not your actual email accounts or anything like that. It'll just move your website across. Also, they have, even though I don't recommend you use your web hosting company's backup backup service. They probably have the longest backups that they make available to you. I think it goes back like 30 days of backups, where a lot of the other hosting companies, it might just go back a couple days. So SiteGround is fantastic, but you're going to pay for it. It might not look like it up front. So when we compare this plan right here, $11.95 to say SiteGrounds, which is as low as $9.31, so it's just a little bit lower. But then look at the renewal. The renewal on A2 hosting is half of what the renewal is going to be here on SiteGround. Now, SiteGround recently increased their prices earlier this year. A lot of web hosting companies have been increasing their prices. So this plan here used to be $30, now it's $35. So a lot of people are getting their renewal notice, and they're like, do I stick around or not? That's the nice thing about it being cPanel based, though. You can easily go from one host to another web hosting provider. So these right here have been the web hosting companies that I recommend. These 3 hosting companies are really good. I'm going to be adding to the list on my website. Now, I do have links to all the companies in the video description box down below, but I really want you to head on over to my website for one reason. So when you go to my website and you click on hosting, check this out. If you click, well, right here it tells you the whatever bonus I'll give you when you get hosting, and not every hosting company I'm allowed to do that with. But if you click right here, I'm probably going to move it. It pulls up an uptime monitor, so you can see how the uptime has been for all of the various hosts right there, and that will give you an idea of how it's actually performing right now. It's super transparent. I try to make it a very transparent thing for you. So anyways, if you have any questions about WordPress shared hosting companies, you can ask me down below. I'll be happy to give you advice or give you any kind of recommendations that you might have down below. Now, I also have, this is part of a video series, so I have a video out on managed WordPress hosting, cloud hosting, all of that, and it's going to be just like this, where I give you the information. You can just make your own decision, or you can listen to the recommendations that I'm making, and you can also ask me questions. So anyways, that's all I have in this video. If you found some value in it, consider giving the video a thumbs up, or maybe even sharing it. And remember to click on the subscribe button and the notification bell if you'd like to know when I upload new videos like this. Hey, thank you for taking your time to spend with me today to watch this video. I enjoyed making it for you, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.